Good morning. I'm Pat Lawson Muse. He is the former provost and chief academic officer and former director of the Howard University Cancer Center. He is the current interim president of Howard, one of the nation's most prestigious historically black institutions of higher learning. Our guest this morning on Viewpoint is Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick. Welcome to Viewpoint.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you. You served as interim president for about 2 months so far. How's the job going?
Oh, it's been great so far. Very humbling, a lot of support from the community, faculty, students, alumni, all alike. So it's been very good so far.
And what's been your primary role, or focus, I should say, since you stepped into the interim president's role?
You know, my focus has been to make sure that we really deal with our challenges and issues of today, but with a viewpoint to really set us up to meet the needs 3, 5, 10 years down the road, regardless of who is at the helm of the university. So I've been focused on our core business, graduation rates, retention rates, and then our operational efficiencies around how we support our core business of education.
Okay, we want to get to some of that in a moment, but I want to talk about this. You have a long, deeply personal relationship with Howard that dates back 25 years, when you were just 16. Tell us the story of what brought you to Howard University.
You know, well, at the age of 16, I was probably about 5'6", 88 pounds. I'm a sufferer of sickle cell anemia. And so I came to Howard University for a couple of reasons. One was because Howard had a sickle cell center. My mom, who's been a nurse for some 40-something years, felt it would be a safe place health-wise. And then the second reason was because I wanted to pursue becoming a physician. And when I looked across a spectrum of universities that would give me that opportunity, Howard had the best fit. My former Prime Minister, Dr. Eric Williams, the founder, father of our nation, as it were, who brought us into independence, was a political science professor at Howard University. So Howard has a very, very strong name in the Caribbean, and so it was a strong attraction for me.
And you come from Trinidad and Tobago.
That's absolutely right.
You are a surgical oncologist by training. Are you still practicing?
I am still practicing on a limited basis, albeit I still see the operating room as my classroom, as it were. And so it's a good respite from the day-to-day activities of administration. Plus, the skill set that I acquired through my surgical practice is one that I feel is very important for me to continue to use to the community and to share with our students and residents. So
what was your reaction when you were approached and asked to take over the role as interim president? It
was very, very humbling. I actually was in a room by myself when I was first, told about it, and I had a moment that reflected, across the 25 years of my engagement with the university. And as I looked at it and I looked at all of the things that Howard poured into me, the technical competence of my education, but more importantly, the service component of what they gave me about giving back to the community and changing the world around me, I was just extremely humbled and honored to be even approached about it.
So did you see taking the job as sort of a responsibility on your part?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see it as a sacred responsibility. Howard is, to me, a global treasure. It's a national research university that certainly fills that role in terms of providing an education. But more importantly, it has a reach well beyond the shores of the United States and has impacted a lot of the African diaspora in a way that has left an indelible mark, for many. So the legacy of Howard certainly makes it a great responsibility. But ensuring the relevance of Howard as you go forward, I think, is a sacred responsibility.
You certainly took over at an interesting time and a rather tough time, Dr. Frederick. In light of your intimate ties with Howard, what's it been like for you to watch the university go through these very tough and public challenges?
Well, as a triple alum, it certainly has been difficult to watch, but my surgical training, my mentor, Dr. LaFall, has me live by some words: equanimity under duress. And I think that's what we all have to come together and do. The second part of my approach to, looking at the tough news cycle that we've been in is also for us to recognize that we need to come together. This is not the challenges that we have will not be solved by any one person. But as a community, when I look at the resources we have in terms of talent, etc., I really believe that if we come together, we can certainly chart a very, very strong course.
At any university, the Board of Trustees makes important decisions and provides critical guidance. Last year, we saw UVA go through a really tough transition with the president there, Teresa Sullivan, and the problems on the board. Howard's board is reportedly going through a tough time, too. What do you think the board needs now or needs to do now?
Yeah. Well, I think over the past few months, the board has been doing what it needs to do, and which is first introspection. We all have to take some respite at times and stop and really look within and make sure that we're covering all bases. I think we have a very committed board made up of very talented people, and I am very confident that the board, not just in terms of personnel, but in terms of the togetherness, in terms of vision and direction, is in the right position to take the university where it needs to go.
Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick is our guest this morning on Viewpoint. We'll continue our discussion right after this. Welcome back. We're talking this morning with Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick, who is the interim president of Howard University. And we talked, Dr. Frederick, about how you've taken the helm at a very difficult time. You've got the board has issues to work through. The university has had budget issues, declining federal dollars, fundraising shortfalls, and some critics say overstaffing. How are you approaching those issues? And do you have any plans? Are there any plans in the work for budget cutbacks or staff reductions?
Well, we're approaching it from a holistic point of view. I am looking broadly throughout the university at where we have operational inefficiencies. We are trying to use technology to maximize our efficiencies, to decrease the amount of contact things that need to be done from person to person and really maximize our use of technology. I think as we do that, we can decrease our expense base. The biggest part of our expense base does remain our staffing, and so we have to critically look at that. When people talk about our staffing, I think they also fail to realize that we have a hospital as well that's connected to that staffing, and how you staff in a hospital, obviously, regardless of census, can be a complicated manner. So we're looking at it holistically to try to change the dynamic around that. We have to diversify our revenue stream. As you pointed out, federal appropriation is a big part of our revenue stream, so we have to diversify that.
What would you like to see done with the hospital? Some say you should just sell it or hold the district government's feet to the fire and force the city to adequately reimburse you for the services you provide to D.C. residents.
That's correct. Well, the two things that we have to do, regardless of what the business construct is, the two things we have to do is to make sure that we continue to serve the community that we serve. It's part of our mission, and we feel very dear about that. The hospital has been there for 151 years, and so we have to preserve it for another 151 years. In my opinion, it has served the community well. The second thing is the hospital is a very important site for training for students and for residents who are going into the profession of medicine and in dentistry. It's a very critical aspect of what Howard provides. So, regardless of what the business construct is, we have to come up with a business construct that would preserve those two items. And so, in my opinion, any business construct that we get to that will fulfill those two priorities will be the right approach. And we're actively looking at those options right now.
In the past 2 years, Moody's Investment Service has downgraded the public bond rating at several elite schools, Howard included, and HBCUs have been particularly hard hit by the lack of resources. What are you doing? What's the strategy for turning that around?
Right. Well, higher education in general was downgraded, and that's because it's a difficult business. When you look at the tuition revenue, it's a difficult thing to expand, and especially when we have students who are coming in to Howard, we're giving them a great opportunity academically. They're very, very gifted, but maybe financially challenged. What we're doing overall is to make sure that we maximize our revenues, diversify our stream. We have some real estate holdings that I believe we can monetize appropriately. We have good research activity that I think we need to bring to market in an entrepreneurial aspect, and we have to expand our fundraising. So that helps diversify the revenue. With respect to the other issues that Moody's may have highlighted, with respect to our expense base, we're certainly looking at restructuring to make sure that we answer that call as well.
Why did Howard fall in the U.S. News and World Report rankings, and what's the strategy for turning that around?
Right. These rankings are really based on some hard criteria. We've looked very extensively at the criteria. Some of the criteria published in the last report were not updated, and we certainly are looking forward prospectively in making sure that those are updated appropriately. The other aspects of the report that we feel that we will be competitive in include things like graduation rates, where we graduate African Americans at twice the rate of African Americans in all of higher education, and we have to maximize our positives, and so we will be taking measures that will maximize it. Ultimately, though, the Howard degree, I believe, also comes with some intangibles, and our service aspect of what we do at the university and what our students get when they go out and change the world is one that we need to maximize. You're not going to see that in any report, but I will assure every parent in America who sends their child to Howard that their child will leave not just with a degree to hang on their wall, but with a perspective about the globe, that they will go out and change the world around them.
All right, Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick will continue our talk on Viewpoint in just a moment. Welcome back. We're talking this morning with Howard University's interim president, Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick. You've got some good news happening this year. You have seen enrollment rebound. You've got the second largest freshman class enrolled in 15 years. How'd you do that?
That's absolutely right. We did it with a lot of hard work. We really analyzed where our students were coming from. And against the backdrop of a 2% decline across higher education, we had a 3% increase in enrollment. So really a 5% swing in our court. We looked at where our students come from, how were they prepared in those markets, and we also looked at markets where we felt we should have more students coming, but we weren't seeing that volume, and so we really had a strong outreach. We also had a lot of engagement once students were accepted. We divided up our orientation cycle, and so there was a lot more student engagement, and that has resulted, as you said, in the second largest class, and we're seeing it go into this year as well. We are well ahead as of this moment in terms of number of applications, etc. We think we'll probably have another record year.
At Howard and other historically black colleges and universities, what's the key to stemming the loss of students to other top schools that are really aggressively, actively going out there after them?
Sure. We have to maximize the value proposition. HBCUs in this country, regardless of how they came about, whether it was through the land grant institutions or through charters such as Howard University, we have to maximize what the value proposition is for today's student. And that means that we have to compete on that same playing level that those students are competing on. So we have to improve our facilities. We have to change the classroom instructional environment so that it's more contemporary. But most importantly, I think we have to have students recognize that once they graduate with that degree, that we will get them placed in jobs or careers which will bring them the type of fulfillment they need.
So what's the key to competing with state and community colleges? They're a lot cheaper.
Right. I agree. But I think if you look at some of the current data in terms of job placement, the job placement isn't as great out of some of those institutions. Fine institutions, no knock against those institutions, but I think we also have to maximize the value proposition. So what I think we should be doing is partnering more with those community colleges. Some of those students who are going to those community colleges are going because of affordability. They are highly talented as well. And so we are also looking at opportunities where we can bring some of those community college students after they get their associate's degree and give them opportunities not just for BS degrees, but to go on to med school, law school, PhD programs, because we think that that talent pool is great. And so our transfer population from the community colleges is actually up as well as part of our ongoing strategy.
What's your advice to high school students or to parents who see their dream of going to college slipping away because they don't have the money and they don't want to make the loans?
Right. You know, I think it has to be very, very strong planning. We have a financial literacy workshop that we are putting our applicants through, our prospective students through, and it is proving to be an invaluable tool. Most parents look at, how do I get my son or daughter this year? What we want people to look at is, what is your 4-year plan? And really, once they start doing that, we can help them and assist them find a way to do it so that there's long-term planning. The resources are marginal, there's no doubt about that. We will give institutional aid of about $90 million this year versus $58 million just about 3 years ago. So clearly, the resources are tight coming from the parents, But we think that there are other sources that they can tap into, local scholarships. The communities tend to support this well, church scholarships, etc. But we have to get that information to the students and their parents so that they are applying for more of these grants and scholarships as well.
Howard has recently signed an agreement with Pearson Higher Education to develop your online academic program. How's that going? Tell us about it.
It's coming along. It's quite a task because we want to bring our instructional environment to meet the needs of the students that we're seeing today. These students are coming out of high school. They've all used 5, 6 different types of devices, whether it's their cell phone, their iPad, their laptop.
They use.
That's right, in the classroom. And so we have to create an instructional environment. So one aspect is to bring online degrees, but the other aspect is to improve that instructional environment, to set up what we call flipped classrooms, where you spend more time having a discussion in the classroom about the material, and some of the didactic intake of the material can occur online. So those are some of the things that we see as advantages from the deal that we have signed as we try to improve that instructional environment. And we think that, again, will help us with retention rates and graduation rates of our students.
And what's the timeline? Is there one for fully ramping up the online offerings?
Well, we're hoping over the next 18 to 24 months to fully ramp up. We actually have online degrees right now in select programs, about 4 programs to be more specific. We would like to expand that, obviously, as well as we would like to expand online offerings within our in-house programs as well, which would also offer students an opportunity to gain their credits at a lot quicker rate.
All right, Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick, we'll be back in a minute. Welcome back. We're talking this morning with Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick, the interim president at Howard University. You've got some good news regarding your endowment, which I'd read was back to pre-recession levels, but it's even better than that, I hear.
That's absolutely correct. Around 2008, our endowment went down to about $380 million after a high in the 500s, and currently it's at about $548 million. So it is certainly, the markets, obviously have been performing better, and so our endowment has grown significantly.
You've also taken steps to better engage your alumni population. What are you doing to get your former students, back in the game?
No, absolutely. Ultimately, we obviously want our alumni to give, but I want them to give because they are totally engaged, and so we're doing a lot of alumni engagement. A lot of that is, face-to-face. I'm meeting with groups as often as I can. I'm going to be traveling the country. I'll be in North Carolina next week, and I'll be in Baltimore later, and then I'll do a West Coast swing in the spring. But I'm also sending out information monthly. I started a president's newsletter which is going out monthly. The November edition, Bison Beat, went out, and we'll be doing that on a monthly basis, where we will update our alum and our community in general, our partners, as to what is going on at the university, what are the things that they should be excited about, and as well, what are our challenges and how we're meeting them, because I think that's a triumphant story as well.
Mm-hmm. You've got a lot of other happenings and improvements taking place around the campus. Tell us about the Simulation Center, which is opening in January.
Sure. The Simulation Center is part of our health sciences complex, where you look at where medicine is going. We are trying to really force all of the education around medicine to be patient-centric and to make everyone realize that you need a team approach. That also involves looking at using technology to teach people how to do things. So rather than the way I was trained, where I had to do one, then observe one, do one, and then teach one, we now have simulation for everything, and it's unbelievable in terms of the technology. We have a mannequin who will deliver a baby, etc. So it's extremely high tech, and that Simulation Center, in my opinion, would probably be the best in the Mid-Atlantic area when we open it in January. So
that sounds fascinating.
Absolutely.
A mannequin delivering a baby?
That's absolutely right.
You're also expanding your physical plant. We see new dorms, new buildings going up.
That's absolutely right. We have 2 new residence halls that are going up. We want to really create more of a community atmosphere on the campus and keep as many of our students on the campus. It helps with student life, so that's going up. We also have a research building going up, which will be an interdisciplinary research building. I think, again, it will be a state-of-the-art building when it's completed next fall, and it will also help us attract the type of researchers we need to expand and really promote our research enterprise.
The National Science Foundation has ranked Howard the nation's top producer of African-American graduates who later earn science and engineering doctoral degrees.
That's absolutely right.
Talk about that.
Well, when you look at science, technology, engineering, and math, and you look at the future, that's really where a lot of the job market is moving. It is estimated that anyone entering those fields will earn anywhere from 10 to 25% more than people entering other fields. So again, when you look at the students who are coming in, we feel that we have to be strong in that area. As we look at that, we already have a history, as you pointed out. The National Science Foundation has recognized us for our history in terms of producing graduates who go on to those fields. We think we can do even more. And just as I was speaking earlier about our community college students who are transferring in, I really feel that we can offer them an opportunity to go into those fields as well and really expand the pool.
And you're starting them very early, because I know the middle school is doing very, very well.
That's absolutely right.
Science and technology.
That's absolutely right. Our middle school is focused on math and science, and when you look at where those students are performing coming in, they are now closing the gap on their white counterparts in terms of testing. And we're very, very proud of what that school is doing, because everyone who hears about our middle school thinks that the kids have to be academically gifted, and that's not the case. We take kids, some of the kids are actually a grade or two behind in their reading and math when they enter, but they're all leaving at a very, very accomplished level.
You've been interim president, Dr. Frederick, for 2 months. Do you want to keep the job?
I'll be humbled and honored if I am called to do anything for Howard University, I have to say. And so as the process unfolds, I'll certainly consult, as I always do, with my wife and family, and then we'll make a collective decision. I have very opinionated kids. They're 9 and 7, but they are very clear about what they want me to do.
Future Howard students, no doubt.
That's right.
Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick, nice to have you on Viewpoint this morning, and all the best to you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And thank you for being with us. I'm Pat Lawson Muse. Stay with us. News 4 Today continues.